What is going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's Pardon the Disruption. We have an amazing panelist up here. This show surely will not disappoint. The questions are on point as well, regardless of what Brewer has said. Real quick, before we get into it, want to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm your host, Matthew Potter. I'm your short sale guy, hedge fund connection, and co-founder of the Family Tree over at Real Broker. Hit me up if I can help you grow your business in any way whatsoever. Real quick, before we get into introductions, how we do things around here, 5 pre-selected questions, 45 seconds for each one of our esteemed guests to go ahead and answer, then 2 minutes to chop it up, and then we will award a point based on best answer most days or favoritism based on how I'm feeling. So good luck to everybody. Real quick, we're going to go ahead and start with our reigning champion from last week, coming in with the 5 points at the end. Just absolutely crushed everyone's dreams. RJ Bates III, introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? RJ Bates III here from Titanium Investments. And I just want to kick off today's show with our first sponsor. It's La Quinta. That's right. La Quinta is actually sponsoring Pardon the Disruption. Your stay might be like, oh, damn it. I totally messed it up. It was going to be funny. Insert laugh. I was going to make a joke about Robert Kiyosaki, but I'll get him later.
Damn it. We'll give you an A for effort, absolute F on execution there. All right. Next up, we have Mr. Disruptor himself, Steve Trang. Introduce yourself.
Steve Trang, we solve sales problems. We're also starting cults. I watched this great documentary on Netflix about it, how to start a cult. Sent RJ the book. He's not participating, so we'll see what happens with that.
We all need an RJ in our cult. Absolutely. Next up, we have Leon. Do not forget the G. Barnes. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, everyone? Leon G. Barnes with the Collective Genius, and I am ashamed to say that that is our representation of our champion. That's how a champion starts off our show right there. If he wins today, I am really checking new math that you're doing, Potter. This is ridiculous. Last week, you made up new rules and started multiplying, so hopefully we can actually play by the rules today. Looking forward to it.
Fuzzy
Look,
math.
rules are meant to be broken, and fuzzy math is our favorite math around here. Speaking of fuzzy math, last but certainly not least, we have coming to us the mayor of York, Pennsylvania, Eric Brewer. Say hi to the people.
What's up, y'all? My name is Eric Brewer. I am actually, just to give you a short resume, I am RJ's security. We talked a little bit before the show about with his newfound stardom, he's attracted stalkers, haters. So in the interest of safety, I am new in charge of his security online and in person. I am Steve Trang's sales coach, Leon Barnes' stylist. And I am actually, unlike RJ, a member of the Whale Club. Look it up. You should be in the Whale Club. Very limited audience there. RJ was unable to get approved, but I would encourage everybody that's listening to apply.
Absolutely. And real quick, before we get into it, don't forget to use affiliate code BATES with Mr. Clean's security services over there. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into it with question number 1. We have, let's see. What do you think of Robert Kiyosaki's comments that America is broke and the Fed has been smoking fantasy weed? This ought to be great. Start us off, RJ.
Well, the good news is, even though I stumbled and bumbled, my reading of our first sponsorship there of La Quinta is still better than Steve Trang reading all the other sponsorships we get here. So, this is hilarious. This guy literally, he became wealthy by selling smoking fantasy weed to these people with these hotel seminars where he charges 25, 40, 50. I saw online all the way up to $90,000. And I know he's talking about America and the Fed and everything. The more that I read about Robert Kiyosaki, the less I like the guy. I mean, I just don't understand why he is pushing some of the things that he pushes. And I think we can all agree that we don't like where we're at as a country and with raising the debt ceiling and things like that. But coming from a guy that has literally made his wealth by pushing people into being broke, it's kind of weird that he's complaining about our country pushing or being broke. It just feels awkward.
Little do as I say, not as I do, maybe there. All right, Steve. What are your thoughts?
It should come as no surprise that I completely agree with him. I do think that our country is completely broke, and the only difference between what our country's doing and what most people with bad credit can't do is that we can just print more money and just raise our credit ceiling, right? One of the things that was really impressive to me when I was really focused on my realtor career was people that had 400 credit scores. Like, the amount of work required to get a 400 credit score means you had to screw your credit, go get forgiveness and get more credit, screw that guy, get forgiveness and get more credit, and then screw that guy. You had to screw like at least 3 different times to get your credit in 400s. And I think America is past that 400 credit person.
We're rolling on 350 around here now. Steve, hopefully not the voice of experience on screwing people over on credit. We hope not.
No, I got to witness it.
Fantastic. All right, next up, Leon, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, going back to last week with Elon Musk and some of the things that he was talking about with Twitter, I think this is, RJ, is another opportunity for Robert to get in front with clickbait, to get more exposure. And that's what I think all this comes from. Because second, what's new? The quote in there, America's debt is going up. In our lifetime, has that changed? It's continued to go up. If you watch this show with any regularity, going back a few months, we've talked about this, that at some point there will be a reckoning, that it has to happen. But it happens. There's cycles to this, but America's debt is going up is nothing new. Again, if you're a real estate investor or somebody that's watching this show because you're interested in doing that, get liquid as you possibly can, because these things cycle. But what hasn't changed in our lifetime is debt going up.
I mean, you're certainly not wrong there. I think our debt is now 35 trillion or something like that, and it's going up like $1 trillion a day. It's ridiculous. All right, next up, Eric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like 107 years ago, Kiyosaki was relevant, right? And he's still riding the waves of that attention. So this really even shouldn't be a question. Shame on us for giving him the attention, right? But like, if you boil it down to what does it mean if you're broke? How does that ultimately impact the people on this call? How does it impact the people watching this? At the end of the day, at the beginning of my career, I was hyper focused on like local economics, like do I have money? And over time, my awareness or concern about more global economics has expanded. And yes, we are broke. But number 2 is, what does that mean long term? When I first got started in the car business, we happened to be close to Baltimore. And we had this relationship with a sports agency that would bring us young athletes. And a lot of those would have like 300 credit scores, and they wanted to buy like a Toyota Land Cruiser or a Mercedes Benz. And we could get banks to lend these athletes money based on future earning potential. Like, hey, you have bad credit now, but your future earning potential is so high, we'll lend you money because we believe that you can pay. So what's the US's future earning potential? It is higher than anywhere else in the world for one reason. We have the largest number of people in our population that are in high earning, high spending age, which it's this characteristic or statistic they look at. It's like between the age of 24 and 60, who's going to work the hardest and spend the most money? If you follow that one trend on global economics, that's a great place to invest, because these people are going to work hard. They're going to spend a shit ton of money. In the world, US has more people in that age bracket. I think we're fine because we got long-term earning potential.
Steve, don't you find it, because you seem like the only person here that was like completely okay with Kiyosaki saying this.
Wonder why?
Don't you find it a little bit disingenuous that he's complaining about the U.S. just printing more money and raising the debt ceiling and all of this, when literally that's what he does to make his money? He says, go to the back of the room. and our credit specialists, they'll call Capital One, and they'll get your
So-
credit line all the way up to 60,000. Then you give it to me, and I'll give
So-
you that fantasy smoke weed, baby.
I'm going to be really careful with my words here. I'm going to be really cautious here because I don't want to get sued by this guy. So my understanding, this is hearsay, not my own personal opinion, is that when he was doing all those events, it's because he didn't have the money himself and he had to license his name. So he was getting paid to license that product that he had no say in because he didn't have money. The other thing, too, is, you know how they say sometimes you don't want to meet your hero? Well, I got a chance to meet Kiyosaki. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes. I don't think he's doing this for attention. I think he's that cranky 90-year-old person you meet when you go into their home and they're ranting and raving. I think this is really him.
Everything you said didn't make it better. It just made it worse.
Didn't make it better. I'm just giving some context to it.
I'll say this. This is much to do about nothing, his quotes, because there's nothing new here that we're really taking from this. But I will say this. I'm very thankful, and there's a lot of us real estate investors across the U.S. that I talk to that got their start by picking up that book when they were in the military or something along those lines. So there's some good, some hope that was given and some wealth building that was given there. But this is much to do about nothing.
So a couple things on that. Absolutely agree with what Leon just said there. Leon's ultimately going to get the point for that round, just so you guys know. But I have to say, for the first time ever, we have the most informed chat ever because everybody agreed that Brewer got 0%. And for that, we're thankful. We are thankful. Mr. Mercedes over there. All right, next up, question number 2. I love you, Brewer. I really do. With retirement, pension, and income becoming a hot topic in the news cycle, what retirement investments would you recommend to someone who saved $1 million for their retirement? Go ahead and start us off, Leon.
Well, first of all, I forgot to ask if that person that Eric sold the car to, or multiple Ravens that he sold the car to, was Ray Lewis and his friends. But we'll ask that off air. We're in
Off
real
the
estate,
clock.
so this is a question that for us, I mean, I think it's going to be hard for many of us not to say that someone that has done well for themselves to save $1 million in their pension or their retirement. I would just ask, what's their end goal? This is something that anytime I'm asking an investor, whether they want to actively invest or passively invest, what's the end goal in mind? And real estate is ultimately going to be the answer, whether that's passively or actively. Let's pursue that. That would be what advice I would give.
Solid as always. Absolutely. Sturdy as a tree. Leon G. Barnes. All right, Brewer. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the tendency here is, I mean, each person here, except for Steve's pretty active in real estate. So there's this tendency for us to side towards real estate, right? But I think for anybody that's watching, this could literally change. I think, when we're talking about some of the stuff we've seen post-COVID, there's a lot that's changing right now, whether it's the debt ceiling. It's that's one tiny element of the total economic picture. That statistic I gave you about earning potential based on age and number of population, that came from a coach of mine. I didn't know that until 3 months ago, right? There's thousands of things that weigh into what is a good investment today and what it might be 10 years ago. My banker emailed me and was like, hey, we have a 15-month CD at 7%. If you can get CDs at 7%, you got $1 million, you might want to put it there. So I think we're all going to tend to say real estate because we've experienced a tremendous amount of success. It feels like for the next 20 years, that's a safe place. But I think you need to take a long, hard look at what your short-term goals are, what you need to live off of passively in that $1 million, probably boil down to the top 3.
That's actually some amazing insight. I know I bust your chops a lot, Brewer, but that's really well thought out. We appreciate you bringing that today. All right, RJ, what are your thoughts?
They had $1 million. I would ask them, how much is your living expenses going to cost you per month? What do you want to live off of? Is it $5,000? Is it 10 grand? What is that? Reverse engineer that, show them how to do the BRRRR strategy, buy properties, refinance them, pull most of your money back out, hire a property management company, get them up to the point where they own enough rental properties where their active income is covered. Eventually get them up to the point where that's doubled for the sake of inflation for however long the remaining days are. And they should be good. They should still have the majority of their investment there. And to Eric's point, because they're refinancing and pulling majority of their cash out, they can then go put that in a CD for 7% or, like the majority of them, 1%, whatever you can find out there. But the active income and for the future is covered with the real estate.
That CD is only offered to Whale Club members, RJ, just so you know. Just wanted to share that with you, brother. All right, Steve, what are your thoughts?
I think on top of what Leon and Eric and RJ are talking about is, on top of like what they're trying to accomplish right now in short term and long term, I'd also ask an additional question as far as where the $1 million is parked, right? Because if it's in a self-directed IRA or something like that, I might suggest going towards lending, right? But if it's outside of a retirement account, I might suggest acquiring assets, right? Because depending on your tax circumstances, different investment vehicles might make sense. Another question I would want to ask them is, how did you happen to come on to the $1 million? Because it might be just keep doing what you've been doing. Potentially, like what you've done has worked so far. How can we figure out how to do more of that or get better at that instead of, changing direction? So I figure out how they got that in the first place, figure out all those other questions guys asked, and figure out where the money is today to suggest which direction to go.
Steve, on your note on lending, I would suggest if they're going to do that, it's with owner-occupant seller finance notes. So it's a more stable, you're getting that down payment from the owner-occupant, and it's a more long-term note rather than doing something like private money or hard money where there's quicker turnover and maybe higher.
I'd be worried about that with the owner-occupant, because with Dodd-Frank and everything else, you can get in a lot of trouble lending to owner-occupant.
Well, then you're not as liquid either. I mean, it makes a good point, right? But I think, like, if you think about down payment, if I lend RJ $1 million to buy a property and he's buying it for $650, there's a de facto down payment there, right? He negotiated equity. The bottom line is all the down payment is doing is reducing the principal amount of the loan in regards to the value. I would personally probably go more towards the shorter term hard money loans where there's more likely to be equity. You're lending to an investor that has a proven track record versus the installment sales agreements, probably a person that has a horrible trade. It's like that 350 credit score we talked about, right? So like, and all the down payment is doing is potentially reducing the loan amount. I think you can do either, but I like the liquidity of saying, I gave RJ $1 million. It's a 1-year balloon. He pays me 10%. I have first lien position on any property he does. And at the end of the year, if I want my $1.2 million back, because I made a decent amount of money, I can move on to the next thing. But again, I think it goes back to like strategy. Each person might have a different decision based on their risk threshold. Give it to Kiyosaki, right, or someone from his camp, and just invest it with them.
I think you can marry the two here to what Eric was saying earlier. Right now, because the market has shifted. Just a year and a half ago, if you try to put money in a CD, good luck on getting 1% in 15 to 24 months. Today, that's completely different. They're between 5 and 6% for most that you see being advertised. A good rule of thumb in this particular case, again, based upon your short and long-term goals, would be to diversify some of that, right? You could put some money in some CD, into a CD, and then the passive that I was talking about earlier is just that, the private lending side. I mean, we can turn $1 million into $80,000 to $120,000, depending upon the investor that you're working with, in just a year's time. And again, going back to Steve's point, you want to make sure that you're looking from a tax perspective, whether that's through self-directed IRA or just cash through. But I mean, there's a lot of opportunity with that liquid.
So going back to the lending side of things, I completely disagree with you guys. I think it's you can easily buy rental properties that need zero rehab at 70 to 75% of full market value. Take that down with your cash, immediately refi, pull all of your cash out, sell it on terms, do a wrap, get your $10,000, $15,000 down payment. You can immediately put that towards your principal. You're in a very secure position, and I don't understand the comment about you could get in trouble with Dodd-Frank. As long as you're using RMLO, you're fine.
You're assuming that's a seasoned investor. They can just as easily put up $1 million and watch it vanish because they paid too much, over renovated. The property doesn't appraise enough for them to burn. If they're that goes back to Steve's comment. If you made your $1 million through investing, you would just continue to do that. I think if we're talking to an audience that isn't an active investor and they have $1 million and you're getting them to go out and either lend to an owner occupant, the Dodd-Frank means like if you didn't properly qualify them for the loan, if it's somehow considered predatory, you'll end up in prison, and then your $1 million doesn't matter.
That's why you hire an RMLO. And you forgot the first part of my answer, which is you work with Titanium Investments, because then we just hold your hand through the whole process. You must not pay attention.
When I was talking about the Dodd-Frank thing, not necessarily affiliate go to jail, PTD. But it's harder. It's harder to foreclose, right? If someone's not performing, it's a lot more work lending to owner occupant. It's the reason why most lenders won't, hard money lenders or private lenders won't lend to owner occupant. The other thing too, when we're talking about buying assets outside, if it's not a self-directed IRA, the only reason why I don't recommend buying assets inside your self-directed IRA is because you don't get the depreciation anymore, right? There's no tax benefit of owning it inside a self-directed IRA, but you own it outside a self-directed IRA, you are getting the depreciation, you are getting the write-offs. That's the only reason why I was saying, depending on where the money was parked.
All right, this was actually a lot better of a set of answers than I was expecting. Like I'm not gonna lie, like it really was.
That tells you how much you love the question.
Look, it's a thought-provoking question. It definitely is. I mean, here's the thing that's wild. My wife actually thinks that Brewer had the best answer. So that should tell you how thought-provoking this is. That being said, gonna go ahead and throw this out there. I don't think that my wife is 100% correct on that. I'm actually gonna award the point to Steve with the self-directed IRA side of it, because I've seen that vehicle used and I do understand that. I'm not saying the Brewer's answer wasn't good. Everybody's answer was actually good.
Well, at least we all agree that RJ's wasn't, though. Like, for one, like everyone just agreed that like you shouldn't run out and start burning properties. Like if you earned and saved $1 million after working for.
But he does make a valid point of if you work with him. You
had a nice 30-year career at the Department of Transportation. Why don't you roll your life savings at the crap table and buy a flipping split level in Dallas?
I just learned that I'm on a real estate podcast with a bunch of guys that don't know how to sell or finance. That's pretty adorable.
We're not giving ourselves advice, RJ. Steve's not asking what to do with the $1 million, right?
I mean, maybe you should, but
unlike your podcast, there's an entire audience out there that listens to this stuff. So, like, you got to be responsible about the advice that we give.
All right. Real quick, before we get into the next question, I'm going to send it over to Steve. Go ahead and read our sponsorship for today.
All right. So this round is brought to you by salesdisruptors.com. We've had 15 people join our community in just in the last couple of weeks, and we're seeing a ton of engagement, ton of activity. And what is most exciting for me is we're seeing people closing more deals right now. So if you believe in sales turning into income, we invite you to join us at salesdisruptors.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. We do appreciate it. All right. Next up, this is going to be a great question. I better get some good answers out of you guys. All right. Would you allow your likeness to be used for low compensation to be a part of something you know millions would consume? Start us off, Steve.
I mean, it really depends on how they're consuming it, right? I mean, if this is like OnlyFans, absolutely not. But if it's like NIL, then hell yeah, right? Like it really depends on what are we talking about here? Where is this being consumed? I've said before, right? Everyone's got a price. I have a price, but it would have to be something I think is worthwhile. So if it's NIL, if it's I don't know, any other form of 18 or universal entertainment versus adult only entertainment, then yeah, hell yeah, that'd be great.
Good Lord have mercy. All right. The last thing that I'm taking away from that is number one, no one wants to think about Steve on OnlyFans.
They will now. It's like, don't think of a red elephant.
No, I need a mute button immediately. As soon as you said OnlyFans, we should have just disconnected the feed.
Why is Leon holding bleach near his eyes?
Because he's the only smart one right now. All right, Leon, please tell us that you're going to class this up. You go ahead and go.
So the good news is I can only legally see out of one eye. So if I cover this one, I can't even think or see what Steve just said. And I don't think he listened or read the question. It is your likeness to be used for low compensation. So the NIL is not low compensation. This all depends on, can I monetize this and springboard this likeness to something else, right? Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the background. So,
Jesus.
You guys might want to check the studio there.
New sound effect.
And check your underwear while you're at it. So let's go back to this question. If you can springboard it to monetize, then yes. But here's what it depends upon. Am I going to be ShamWow guy? No. Chip and Joanna, that I can take this and monetize it? Absolutely. That's how I would go about doing it. Only that way, if I could springboard it to something like what Chip and Joanna have done with their show.
There we go. Leon always brings us back to the focus that we're going for. We appreciate that. We should have like a Leon. Like Leon should have his own show, like Chip and Joanna. He should. All right, Brewer. I'm looking at you over there. All right. What are your thoughts?
Oh,
yeah. I think at the end of the day, like dude's like weed whacking outside my window. I had to throw a pen at him. I thought maybe RJ was getting some manscaping done. But I think the answer is if that's the only option, all of us right now are allowing our likeness to be used for zero compensation. So certainly, right? It's in an effort to springboard the attention that comes as a result of being attached to this brand, which is awesome. So I think at the end of the day, yes, because attention is currency, right? So if you can attach your likeness to something that's going to get you millions of eyeballs on you and your product, absolutely. What I would try and do is, if that's coming from a startup or something like that, is negotiate some piece of equity, which isn't compensation on the front end. One of my favorite artists of all time, 50 Cent, did one of the best deals of all time, where he gave up like $200,000 worth of a lump sum payment and interest for like 10 or 20% of vitamin water. And then that company eventually sold to Coca-Cola for like $1 billion. And he walked away with like $100 million. He allowed his likeness to be used for very low or little compensation. And at the end of that, he walked away with probably one of the biggest lump sum payments he's ever got. And that guy's made some extraordinary deals. So yes, but try and get a little piece of equity if you can in the beginning.
Solid. That's actually great advice there, Brewer. We appreciate that. All right, last, certainly not least, what you got? You cleanly manscaped over there. Hit us, RJ.
This is like that scene from the movie We Are the Millers, where Jennifer Aniston looks at the guy and she's like, "You're getting paid $500,000 and you were only going to give me 30?" And then the daughter's like, "You're getting 30? I was only getting 1,000." And then the son's like, "Y'all are getting paid?" You know, I'm like, what's happening right now? You're asking a bunch of guys that are doing this for free so 27 people can watch us today. Like, of course we would. What is Steve talking about with this? Like, I don't know. I mean, how many people are going to consume it and how are they going to consume it? I mean, listen, the question stems from the NCAA football players complaining about their low payout for the EA Sports video game that's going to come out in 2024. I don't know if they're just a lot smarter than I was when I was in college, but I would have just thought it would be cool that I was in the game. These guys are complaining about getting low compensation. It's like, dude, you're going to get plenty of opportunities to make your money on other NIL deals. Get over it. enjoy playing yourself in the game with your buddies and get over yourself.
You guys, speaking of the games, do you know one famous basketball player that does not allow any of the games to use his likeness just because of this reason? Now, he's already rich, obviously, but there's one guy that doesn't allow you to use his likeness. No, Jordan's in games.
I don't
Charles
know
Barkley, the only guy.
Yeah.
If you play with NBA
Chuck.
2K and you play with the Sixers all-time team, unfortunately, you do not get Chuck. Suns, you do not get Chuck. He will not allow his likeness to be used for low compensation in these games. But, we're talking about a millionaire here. And so when it comes to this, less compensation, as long as you can either get equity, to Eric's point, or the ability to still own your own likeness so you can springboard it is the best answer here.
How do I pay so that I can be an EA Sports game? Like, that's what I want to figure out.
Right?
Well, you can create your own person once you get into those games. You just can't.
But it won't be millions of people consuming it. Yeah, the fact that they're complaining about the fact that there's going to be low compensation is like, just be good and you'll make your money elsewhere.
Right. Well, that's the problem, Steve. I might be incorrect about this, but I believe this was coming from some of the lower tier, like Big Ten schools, where none of their players are like in contention to be Heisman contenders or anything like that. They were the ones that were complaining about it. And it's like, I'm sorry that you're not good enough to get high-paying NIL deals from somewhere else, but it's just a numbers game in this regard. They have to include every single player that plays NCAA football. I think there's like 130 schools. There can only be so much money given out, and it has to be equally shared.
My friend, who was never empathetic, his words would always be, sucks to suck.
I don't know why Steve's exposing me right there. Thanks, bud.
Yeah. I think we're all speechless because Steve said he had a friend.
Thank you, guys. I love coming. This is my favorite part of the week. Yeah, it's great.
What he left out is his friend was saying that to him. It wasn't like some advice he was giving to somebody else. He literally says that to Steve all the time.
Thank you, Eric. Man. Appreciate that.
This didn't disappoint on any level. And just to go ahead and drive the point home a little bit more, we're going to just continue to pile on Steve. Everybody else is getting a point except for Mr. OnlyFans over there. He's not getting, because you have
now getting an OnlyFans account after this.
Oh my God, please don't.
OnlyFansSubscribers.com. Check it out.
I want feet.
Potter,
oh my God. Feet finder.
Potter, you got to be careful here, man. You went against your wife, so you're already sleeping on the couch. And if I show up next week and you're not the host, we know why.
No, don't worry about that. That's not going to happen. All right, real quick before we get to our next question, gonna read a advertisement from another sponsor that we have over here, which is the Family Tree over at Real Broker. If you are looking to make a change in your real estate business, check out therealfamilytree.com and schedule your collaboration call with us. We will help you grow your real estate business. All right, next up we have question 4 already? Man, we're actually making good time today. All right, this question is Eric Brewer's actual personal favorite for today. Is asset protection overrated? And with regards to this question, so that our audience knows, we're talking about the push that every single property you own should be in a separate LLC. So let's go ahead and start it off with anyone other than Steve. So we'll start with RJ today on this one.
Listen,
no.
if you want to help out your guru and sign up for Prime Corporate Services, and just rack up the assets, then help out your guru. Outside of that, should every LLC or should every rental property have its own LLC? I don't believe that. Is asset protection important to a certain degree? Yes. but it's not as such a big deal as some educators make it out to be. This is something that you can simply have a conversation with an attorney. They will set it up for you, and you move on about your life. It doesn't have to be this big, ordeal where you have to hire these companies that are charging you $2,000 to set up a Texas LLC or anything like that. I do think it's extremely overrated, and it's a fear tactic to sell affiliate income. That's what I think it is.
Very fair. I mean, honestly, if you have more LLCs than deals closed, it's probably not the road to go down. All right, Steve, what about you?
He might actually get a point this round.
Eric, give the man a point. Give him a point.
Best answer yet.
Remember when you said airspace?
There it is. What he gets. This is what he gets for making
That's
fun of
disappointed
CJ.
Steve right there. All right. We'll go ahead and come back for Steve's thoughts on this one. We're going to go ahead and skip it on over to Leon. What you got?
So is asset protection overrated? No, it's not overrated. But there's no cookie cutter answer that you should be given by any guru, to RJ's point, that you need to do everything the same as another investor, because as Eric and I often say, there are levels to this game. And if you're wealthy and you've built wealth, real estate allows for that, and you've got 100+ doors, then yes, you should be looking at asset protection at a much higher level. But if you've got 4 doors in 10 years, is it as important to you as that individual with 100+ doors? No, but it is something that you should consult when setting up any LLC and buying any property. You should consult someone local to your market that is an attorney and someone that understands this at a high level. It has been blown out of proportion, in my opinion, in the past, but it's something that each individual person at their particular level at that time should be looking into.
Very nice. Always detailed. Always brings the cliff notes with him. Leon, we appreciate you. All right, we're going to go ahead and kick it back over to Steve before, he goes back down. So, Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what Leon was just saying a moment ago. I think it's a tad overrated. You look at all these nightmare stories, you got all these companies that sell asset protection, this and that. But I'm trying to think of how many people that we know have ran into a situation where they lost a significant portion of their assets in these scenarios. Like you got umbrella life insurance, you got general insurance. You can settle for a lot of these claims. There's a lot of people pushing this asset protection, but I haven't seen any situations that I'm aware of where it's necessary, I guess. So I think it's something that you want to look at when you get a little bit further down the road. But you have all these guys from the get-go creating an LLC when they start their company. You got companies suggesting getting an LLC for every single property. I think it's important to look at when you get to a certain milestone, but I think it's overrated up until you get to that point.
Fair. Thank you for regurgitating Leon's answer. We appreciate it.
I'm sorry. If my internet worked, I would have heard it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
$24.99 a month. That's what we're rolling on over here. All right, Brewer, what are your thoughts on asset protection?
I'm glad we cleaned it up a little bit, because do you need a separate LLC for every rental property question was just nagging the piss out of me. It was probably the worst question suggestion I've ever seen. The answer is you do need asset
sugarcoat
protection.
It for us, bro.
There's nothing worse than creating wealth and legacy and assets, and then having some type of legal loophole that comes and takes that away, right? So it's kind of like auto insurance. I've been paying auto insurance for 40 years. I've, knock on wood, never needed it. But when that day comes, I don't want to be the guy riding around, with my tags all wrong, in the famous words of Cedric the Entertainer, and no insurance, and end up in a situation to where, I have an asset that's at risk and taken from me. Every year there's over like 20 million lawsuits filed. So if we don't, unfortunately, in this country, in this atmosphere that we're in, protect our assets whether it's a tenant issue, someone slipped and falled on a rental property or something, we literally can have all of our wealth and hard work evaporated. So I would consult with a legal professional about your individual situation, but I would say the topic of asset protection could, particularly as you grow, becomes more and more prevalent and important.
Here's the reason why I say it's overrated, okay? Because it's on a daily basis that I see someone post something along the lines in a Facebook group that says, I've got my trust, and then I've got my LLCs in that trust. What list should I pull so I can talk to homeowners? And it's like, holy shit, like, bro, go get your $5,000 back, all right? So we can actually talk to someone. That's the reason why I have a problem with it. Should you have asset protection? Sure, but this is just as simple as talking to an attorney that could say, yeah, I can set this up for you, and it's over.
Yes. And there's again levels. There's good, better, and best, right? As you get into a situation where you have wealth that is built and you have thousands of properties and commercial assets and all of these type of things, if somebody has a slip and fall, which, God forbid that happens, but there's chances of that, then you want to be protected, because guess what attorneys love to find? They love to find someone to go after that actually has what? Money, right? So for their client, because they get a big percentage of that. So should you have it, especially if you have built that wealth over a 20, 30, 40-year period? Absolutely. But to RJ's point, do some deals. Get some wealth first before you go out and spend all this money on protecting what limited assets you have.
Yeah, if you don't have assets, you don't need asset protection. So if you're prioritizing insuring your assets before you've secured your assets, you may be working out of order.
Yeah, I've been a party of, over 1,000 transactions, and there's only been one lawsuit ever where I've had to worry about that. One in all this time. Now we get sued here and there. We get frivolous lawsuits that we just get thrown out. But we only have one lawsuit where I've ever actually been concerned about my financial well-being. So.
And it's a good point, Steve. In this business, generally, if you're doing it at a high level, someone's going to file a lawsuit on you. That's going to happen. So you definitely need protection if you're doing this business at a high level. But again, I think Eric said it best. Don't worry about gaining the assets before you start trying to protect what you don't have.
Yeah.
Always the most well-informed panel in real estate right here. These four. Shout out to CJ not being here today to participate in this question. Gonna go ahead and go just because of the PCS. I gotta hit RJ with the point because he's not wrong here, and it's like I said. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have more LLCs than you have deals that you've done it backwards, and I think that's pretty much what everybody's agreeing on. You have to scale your asset protection as it increases. So, all right. We're going to go ahead and get into our next question. This one has been a little bit of a hot topic. I've seen this one a lot and kind of really want to see what your guys' take and thoughts are on this one. There appears to be a split of roughly about 50-50 in the investment community on whether or not it's appropriate to reach out to provide help by purchasing properties right after a natural disaster. How long after a natural disaster should investment companies wait to negotiate on properties affected by the disaster? Obviously, this is about what's happening right now in Maui. Go ahead and start us off, RJ.
So in this case, we're doing outbound marketing because we're reaching out to them, right? So in that case, you're going to pull some sort of list, and you are going to find out that you're triggered by tax default, vacancy, liens, pre-foreclosure, something along those lines. The natural disaster could enhance their desire and their need to sell the house quickly. So I don't think that it's inappropriate, as long as you're reaching out with some level of empathy towards their situation, to ask if they need to sell their property. The key here is is that you continue to follow up. This is very similar to probate situations. Investors love to reach out to probates immediately, and some of those are very lengthy processes. Are you still following up with that probate a year later? Are you still following up with the area that was impacted by the natural disaster a year later? I don't think that there's a time frame. It's just about the consistency of you talking to sellers.
I see that insight right there. It's almost it's the rapport and the genuine place of trying to come, to help. That's what it is, rather than just trying to hit a quick, wholesale or fix and flip, whatever it may be. All right, Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the people that are saying you should not reach out to them have a negative view on our industry. I believe that they're looking at us as vultures, right? But someone has to help these people. Some of these people are in dire straits. Some of these people need money, food, whatever. So to say no one should reach out to them, what's the alternative for some of these people? Be left alone? Be homeless? Right? So I think that there's this idea that we shouldn't reach out to these people for your financial benefit. This is the world we live in. We're not doing things without care for our financial benefit. But at the end of the day, are we able to help a person out of a bad situation? If you don't believe you can help them out of a bad situation, then don't reach out to them. But if you believe that you can help someone in a really negative spot in their life, going through the worst time of their lives, you don't believe you can help them, then don't reach out to them. But if you believe you can help someone out of a bad spot, then I think you're doing a disservice not reaching out to them.
Okay. Good insights. Good insights. All right. What about you, Leon? What are your thoughts on this?
It's a pretty sensitive subject here. I think there's a classy way to handle this, and there's definitely a douchey way to handle this. We talked about this less than a year ago, just south of me with the hurricane. We had a conversation on this show about this. That's 40 minutes away from me. I lived in Hawaii for 3 years. I spent a lot of time in downtown Lahaina talking to business owners, selling advertising in 2011, 12, and 13. It is a great community. The Hawaiian Islands are some of the most isolated islands in the world. There is a community aspect there. And I think that, if you are reaching out in Hawaii, ohana means family, and family is important to the culture. If you are reaching out from the mainland and bothering these people, when some of them, half of the land there has not been, they haven't, gotten to a point where they've found everybody yet. You're reaching out to people that might not have found their loved ones yet. This is important that you take that into consideration. I think if you offer help and solutions, I think it is a very classy gesture to help. But if you're just smiling and dialing and texting all these, you run the risk of talking to people that have loved ones that have passed away and they have not found them yet. So I would just be cautious on how you go after it. If you offer solutions and help, I think you can do it in a classy way.
There we go. That's a little bit deeper dive there, especially from someone that's lived on the island. So thank you for that, Leon. All right, Brewer, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, there's a couple different moving parts here. To Steve's point, I think the question stems from like this ambulance chaser sort of mentality where our industry generally gets negative feedback because of what seems like opportunistic focused marketing. RJ mentioned how a lot of the folks that reach out to investors like us are facing some type of financial difficulty, maybe a probate situation. I would say the devastation that we've seen there probably trumps any financial distress or probate situation we've ever seen, right? Like you've literally seen the place that you live be devastated. Like I've seen some video, it's gone, right? What used to be there is gone. From a straight clinical business perspective, everybody should go there. There's going to be more opportunity there to buy property at a deep discount than we'll ever be able to recreate in our backyard. If you care, which it's a big if you care about the sensitivity or the perception of the person on the other line, or whether or not you could sleep at night, you may need to do some additional follow-up and approach it with tact. But there are some people that'll just frankly go there, shotgun mail, shotgun calls, shotgun text messages, and they may make 10 million bucks over the next couple years. So there is tremendous opportunity there. Unfortunately, it's created by devastation. But if we don't go there, if investor don't, what's going to happen? Like the government, the guy said no comment. If that's, your president, they asked him about it yesterday, getting into a helicopter. He had no comment about 100 dead people and 1,000 missing people. So the government's not going to swoop in and rebuild those communities. The people that are devastated by it could, but some of them are just going to want to start fresh and get away. There's an opportunity there for investors to add value back to that community, and nobody else is probably willing and capable to do it. So I don't think we just have the opportunity. I think we, as investors, have an obligation to go there.
Eric, let's be honest. We were all proud of Sleepy Joe for getting no comment out. Okay. So
that's like Steve's screen freezing when it's his turn to answer. It was probably the best example of his 30 seconds.
But I will say this on Leon's part. Okay. The question is about natural disaster. I think the situation in Maui is slightly different than just other natural disasters. I'll give an example. 2020, a derecho hit Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines area. Much different natural disaster. It created a ton of motivation from sellers. They were not distraught because you were reaching out because a windstorm ripped off some siding and shingles. They were like, hey, thank you for reaching out about my vacant property that's already in tax default. Yes, I need to sell it. And they were highly motivated, and you were able to get good deals. The other aspect of this is because I've done a lot of deals in Hawaii. To Leon's part, if you were reaching out to them from the mainland, first and foremost, you're not going to be a welcome call just because you're calling from the mainland. They don't like to sell to people from the mainland, and especially in this circumstance. So I do think that is one thing to keep in mind. And the other part of this is, with it specifically being on Maui, that is relatively rural. It's a lot of country. Some of these people that lost their houses might not have anywhere to go. They might not even have electricity at this point. I don't even know if you're going to be able to make contact with some of these people. So that plays a huge impact on this as well. It's a tragic scenario of what happened over there.
I think the classiest way, living in the 808 for 3 years, the classiest way that you can go about this, especially Maui. Maui is not Oahu. Oahu has 1 million plus in population. Maui is, last time I checked, was 550 in that range, maybe a little bit more now since I lived out there. But the classiest way that you can approach this, local means 808. I mean, there's one area code. It's 808. And if you are calling from a mainland prefix, they're more than likely not going to answer that. So if you can find a Maui-based or a Hawaii-based investor that has been there since day one, working with local families, and you can offer support to that individual, financing, maybe some JVs, opportunities of that, to me, that would be your best bet, because that individual already has relationships there and it lives in that community. That's very important to the people of Hawaii.
Yeah, and going back to Leon was saying he lived there for 3 years. We actually had our 10-year anniversary in Maui, and I remember specifically going to Lahaina, right? And so like when my wife pulled this, like she was emotional. She's like, "This is where we went to go buy those dresses for our girls as our what we're going to bring back from our anniversary trip." So yeah, I mean, like it's crazy to see, like that's where we were, to see it look like that.
I mean, it looks like a war zone. I mean, so, when we're going back to what RJ talked about, is that, there's tornadoes that rip through the Midwest and floods and things of that nature that we have to, you have to be sensitive as well. But this is different, man. This looks like a war zone that I would just encourage you to look at ways of offering solutions first. If you're going to look at, to Eric's point, they're going to need resources. So find a way to do it in a classy way.
There we go. We did a deep dive there. I figured we would. As always, the classiest member of our panel, Leon G. Barnes, gonna award the point on that one. That being said, RJ close second place on that because you're right. Like both of you guys are right. Brewer's right too, and we're glad that Steve's internet is actually up now, so we got that going for us too. So, all right, we have question number 6. This one should be fun. I'm really excited for this one. Should we enforce specific performance when a seller changes their mind? All right, go ahead and start us off, Leon.
Man, this is a hot topic. In fact, I had a conversation about this yesterday about performance of a seller. I think that real estate investors in general, their language in the contract has evolved over the years because there are more competitors in the marketplace. And absolutely, if you have signed a contract and you are of able mind and body, unlike who we were referencing earlier with a no comment, then you should be held accountable to performance. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so we got one vote for you better go ahead and pack up the U-Haul. Let's go. All right, Brewer, what are your thoughts?
First glance is yes. Now there are isolated incidents where someone in distress called us. They made a rash or a rush decision, and something in those circumstances have changed, and now displacing them by forcing them to sell would cause way more harm than good. In those situations, I think we have to take a step back and make sure that we're not just forcing specific performance for the monetary gain. But that's a very small percentage. Oftentimes when people try and back out, they may indicate that there's like some type of displacement or it's going to cause them a lot of pain. But another objection has resurfaced, right? One that we didn't know about earlier that's now come up sort of post-contract. So I think the dangerous precedent when we don't enforce specific performances, we lose a lot of integrity with our acquisitions people or our salespeople. They're less likely to sometimes push to overcome objections if they know that 2 days later the boss will just let them out of a contract. And then I think it reduces our integrity too. If those terms are so negotiable that either of us can just back out, I think it gives then the investor permission to just walk away from a deal whenever they don't feel like closing as well. So I would say yes, with this small sliver of sometimes when you got to use some discretion.
All right. RJ, what are your thoughts?
This one's tricky. I don't think so. I mean, I think if the seller is wanting to back out of the contract, then you did a really poor job of understanding why they want to sell you the property and you're not solving their problem. When I look back at this, we have never actually gone after a seller for specific performance. We do not put memorandums down on properties, and we have no problem keeping sellers under contract and closing deals. I think that stems from the way that we do acquisitions. As much as Eric likes to joke about its order taking, it's about the fact that we have a relationship from the moment that we get ink on paper all the way through, and we understand what's going on there. And this is a very small percentage of deals for us. And more often than not, when a seller does want to back out, they explain the reason to us. It's for a legitimate reason. And it's more like we're granting them the termination than it's some weird, awkward legal battle between buyer and seller.
Jesus, it's like the Heart Melter podcast over here with RJ Bates right now. I love it. All right, Steve, what are your thoughts?
So my preference is to not have to enforce it. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of other options in the Phoenix market. It's either we enforce it across the board or we don't, right? So we have enforced it in the past, and we will continue to enforce it. It's a legally binding agreement between two competent adults, to Leon's point, right? So you made a decision, we made a decision. We've done our end. You've decided because someone else came later on, they wanted a higher offer, they want to renegotiate. Like, that's not on the table here. So for us, we absolutely do enforce specific performance. And I think what's funny is, like, there's a lot of realtors in our community that's like, oh, these guys record memorandums, like these guys are dirtbags. How can they hold the seller to this purchase contract? To which I look at as like, most realtors won't let the sellers out of a listing agreement, right? I'm talking to this homeowner, they got a listing agreement and they want to sell their house to us, but their realtor won't cancel the listing agreement. So for me, it's always humorous that realtors are high and mighty and they won't cancel a listing agreement, and they judge us because we won't cancel our purchase contract.
I've always felt like it was broken focus. You're chasing a ghost. You're getting attorneys involved. You're gonna over what? Go do more deals. Like, is that one deal really that important to you?
Is that one deal important to your acquisition manager who's expecting to get paid a commission on this deal?
Potentially.
I think there's a lot of.
We got them to say, do a better job. Here's a copy of Extreme Ownership, since y'all loved to bring that up a couple of weeks ago.
There's a lot of good here, and I would say this, that the two things that RJ and Eric both said is, Eric talked about process, RJ talked about trust. If you have built a great relationship and trust, and your process is one that has informed that seller of able body and mind, that this is a legally binding agreement, and that trust and that process is on point, then they should absolutely perform based upon the process being right and the trust that was built, unless a rare occurrence happens where that seller passes away before closing or something along those lines that is very rare comes up. I think that we're all kind of saying the same thing, but it goes back to what we didn't really highlight, which is a proper process and great trust that's built up before that contract is signed.
I got a quick question for you guys. I'm going to interject a personal experience, since, we all dislike realtors over here. So I'm going to give you guys this personal experience. I had a buyer that I was representing who was purchasing a property off the MLS. It had been listed, and there was a wholesaler who had filed a memorandum. Now, this guy's not exactly known as being the sweetest wholesaler that anybody has ever met. Certainly not the caliber of individuals that I see on the screen in front of me. Now, we were 2 weeks away from foreclosure sale date, and he came back and said, I want 30 grand of her profit, or I don't care, it can go to foreclosure. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
That's the kind of move right there that brings that's what gets us in trouble, right? That's where realtors say wholesalers are scum. That's where regulations are going to come down on us, because that shouldn't be the case. And then, quite frankly, this is why I don't think wholesalers should be putting memorandums down on properties, because we sit here and say, no, you should, because we don't want a seller to back out from us, when that's a very rare occurrence. If you're halfway decent at acquisitions, and then you run into a scenario like that, they've lost their reason why they're doing this, and that's why they're not successful, guaranteed.
RJ, you're so full of shit. Like, you send out 100 offers to people that said, send me the contract, I'll sign, and you get 20 back.
No,
right?
that's bullshit. My contract to sign ratio is 73.7%.
Okay, so 30% of the people said they were going to sign it and didn't sign it. They just backed out before you got it inked.
Correct.
So mortgage companies, let's use that as an example, right? You probably buy homes that are in some sense of pre-foreclosure. Like, is someone defaulting on a mortgage and not making payment and upholding their obligations? Should the mortgage company just say, hey, we should have done a better job of underwriting the borrower when we extended the loan, and we're not going to enforce our mortgage and foreclose on the property? Should they take the same approach to enforcing their mortgages?
Isn't that what forbearance is called? And loan modification? They give them options, right?
You don't just let them out of the mortgage.
No.
So
we're also not a lender. We're a buyer. This is a transaction. We're supposed
obligations are obligations, contracts are contracts, right? Like at the end of the day, if someone, it depends what we define as backing out. If someone made a commitment, I do agree with you to a certain extent that I think there's people that rush through the process. They get somebody to sign something they don't really understand. And in the next few days, it becomes more real. And they're like, hey, this is not what I agreed to. Like, I do agree that there's some element of people in this business that are probably doing that. And I think jamming somebody for that is foul play. The real estate agent holding someone accountable, a listing agreement, it is what it is. But there's got to be consistency. You can't be a real estate agent and say, I have a legal binding listing agreement. If you sell it outside of this relationship, you owe me 6%. You can't be a buyer like yourself and say, hey, we execute on contracts. We don't back out. And then say that a seller can, there just has to be consistency in the integrity of the business. And saying that you just allow people.
We have conversation. I mean, I could think of in the past year, maybe 2 sellers doing
so
this.
Out of so 73% contract to sign, how many signed contracts actually go to settlement?
Right now, we are at 70%.
So what happens to the other 30%? One of you backed out.
Yeah, we terminated. We're buying them sight unseen, virtual. When we go and we do our walkthrough and we say, you said good condition, this is not good, here's a termination.
Okay.
Yeah, you act like you've never heard of an inspection period and then a buyer backing out. That's a very normal thing that happens. But sellers backing out on us, that does not happen.
Never happens on the seller side, though. Just 30% of the time, it's normal for it to happen for buyers backing out an inspection period, but no one as a seller ever backs out.
No, we don't have sellers terminating on us. No.
Okay, gotcha.
Do you? Maybe
yeah,
you hire me to come do your acquisitions. My God, let me train your people.
Out of thin air. I think you're full of shit. You're not. You're not. Dude, you brought me a deal you wanted to novate, and I asked you about it 3 times, and you told me the lady backed out of the deal.
What deal?
The $700,000 house in Austin.
No. We terminated because there was a second lien for $70,000 that she said didn't exist. We terminated.
Gotcha.
See, no.
I am looking forward to doing this live.
And then we can deal with it.
Dude, this live is gonna be amazing. Are we bringing folding chairs? Because I just see some WWE SmackDown occurring. The bookends on my screen, we got red and redder over here.
I don't want folding chairs. I want full chairs that have to break.
There is a nature of this business where it's seller's remorse. It's part of every transaction that takes place. God bless you if it doesn't happen for you. Shame on me for insinuating that you're like every other person in the world. But buyers have remorse, sellers have remorse. Jesus. It's the nature of the business. It's not necessarily an indication of a flawed process. And there's really no, I don't even see how the extreme ownership thing has any correlation whatsoever. Nice try.
So my question to you is that seller calls you with remorse and you're going to say, fuck you, specific performance.
It's an option. It's black or white in the contract. I said in the beginning of my thoughtful response in comparison to yours was that there is an exception, right? You got to understand a lot of the folks that sell to us are not operating in most cases under normal circumstances. They've told the mortgage company they're backing out. They've told their electrical company they're backing out. They've told the freaking township that they were going to fix the 7 cars sitting in the front yard, and they backed out on that. They have a history and a track record of backing out of agreements. So when they call us and they say, I got the money, it's taken care of, I'm not moving forward, it's often a smoke and mirrors of them trying to delay the inevitable. And if we don't dig to the root of the problem again, we're likely just we're going to let them off the hook, and they're going to end up losing the house, or they're going to end up in an inferior situation. People back out. They have sellers.
Thank you for reminding me why I don't do deals in York, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So real quick, I just wanted to interject. I'm going to be late for dinner if I continue to let you two talk. So we're gonna go.
How many weeks until we're live?
Man, I think it's 4. I don't know. Steve, send out the memo on that. Anyways.
I think we're 6 weeks away.
All right, beautiful. So, obviously, a very thought-provoking question. 2 very different sides of the coin. Ironically enough, the chat agrees with RJ on this. They don't agree with Eric on it. Well, no, 25% does, which is about the back out rate that RJ has on his contracts. So we got that going for us. I think that everybody kind of is coming from the same place, and correct me if I'm wrong, of trying to do the right thing for themselves, for their organization, and then also for the seller. I think we can kind of all agree on that. That being said, the chat says that RJ gets the point, so RJ gets the point. But because he was so patient through the whole thing, and we have a tie, it's been a hot minute. You know what's coming.
Here it comes.
I see
Here
it.
it
He's got his head shaking. Leon G. Barnes is going to win today for being the classiest member of PTD. We appreciate it as always.
I thought for sure you were going into fraction multiplication there for a second,
Nope.
but it worked out.
Nope. Hey, there's no differential equations today for you, Leon. Don't worry. It's just a straight W.
I want to make sure everyone's clear because Leon's so damn classy. He's who I'm hitting with the folding chair when we're going.
Jesus. You can't hit my man, Leon. Come on.
He kind of looks like Jimmy Hart. Remember, who wasn't it? Jimmy Hart, who was like the manager on WWE. Like, Jimmy Hart. Was he the guy that carried the microphone around?
Are we all going to dress up as like our favorite character or what?
I'm wearing a chair-proof vest. That's all I know.
Eric already knows this. I'll remind Steve of this. I'm not an easy win.
Man. We definitely came with it today. I appreciate everybody tuning in and everybody watching this. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and you are tuned into Pardon the Disruption's YouTube dedicated channel. We're going to go ahead and let everybody say goodbye. We'll start with Leon G. Barnes, the winner for today.
Great show, as always. Leon G. Barnes with the Collective Genius. Guys, I feel like we got like 3 more questions in this if we had time. So I'd love to keep going, but we'll just continue this conversation next week. See you then.
Absolutely. And hopefully Steve will actually invite you back because you know how he likes to put you in timeout in between wins. It's a really weird thing. I don't know. I've tried for you, man. I have. Brewer, say bye to the people.
Yeah, I had fun today. I actually enjoy the spirited conversations, and I'll concede. Listen, if RJ gets the vote by way of popular consensus, I'll concede. Right? I do think he has a seller here and there back out, but I'll take his word for it. Excited to be back. It was fun. I enjoy the dialogue, and I look forward to next week.
Absolutely, we're glad that you're back, Brewer. You know,
I'm not.
Just fair. RJ, say bye to the people.
So I've been looking at this whale club because I didn't know about this whale club. And I'm big on logos. And the logo is an orca. And upon review, an orca is actually a dolphin. So if you want to join the dolphin club, DM Steve Trang Dolphin so you can be a dolphin just like Steve Trang.
Absolutely amazing. All right, Steve, go ahead and say bye to the people.
Steve Trang, Real Estate Disruptors. We solve sales problems, and I just want to say I really apologize for RJ and Eric's behavior. So thank you, Leon, for keeping it classy. It's always fun hanging out with Leon, and I guess
Didn't you just say you're going to smash him in the face with a chair on the live?
Yes. Not in the face. I'm respectful.
Oh, you're going to break the man's back. Okay, thanks.
Respectfully.
Oh, man. And we still worked it respectfully. Man, that's when you know the show is on point. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next week. We hope you had as much fun as we did chopping it up. We'll see you next week.